If you ask me where the real root of gravitas lies, I'd have to say it lies in true expertise, in really knowing about the topic that you're talking about. And if you've seen our video on the trust equation, you'll know that that kind of credibility also plays very strongly into your trustworthiness. So in this video, I want to look at the source of authority and your credibility through expertise and knowledge. Let's start our exploration of authority with the vital dimension of depth. Depth of knowledge, depth of understanding, depth of insight. Because a deep technical expertise and subject knowledge is vital for anyone to consider that your words will carry weight. And where does knowledge and expertise come from? It comes from learning and it comes from experience. Therefore, in order to build gravitas, you need to be constantly seeking out new opportunities to do new things, and you need to be always learning. And that's the key, of course, to this channel. But if someone's going to regard you as having gravitas, they've got to know that you have that experience, you have that expertise, you have that depth of knowledge. So it makes sense to display the evidence of your knowledge and experience and expertise where appropriate. You need to wear it lightly. But the first thing is to ensure that any qualifications that you do have that are appropriate to where you're seeking to advise people, where you want to build your gravitas, are available to people. If you use an email signature, then make sure your qualifications are there, not shouted out in big bold letters, but as part of your name. Likewise, if you're in a commercial environment, then testimonials are the sort of thing that help to build your credibility and your authority. But as I say, wear them lightly. If you've got qualifications on your business card, that's great. But I'm not a big fan of over-displaying them and over-emphasizing them and starting every conversation with, well, as an expert, what I would say is. Because that's just bragging. Let the people who listen to you judge your expertise. But certainly if you do have an objective measure of your expertise, like a relevant qualification, then letting people know about that subtly really helps. But if you are going to demonstrate your expertise, if you are going to show that you have real authority and credibility, the most important thing you can do for any meeting, for any encounter, is to prepare well so that you know the background to the situation and you can form a reasoned judgment about it so that you've got a point of view to share. But if you are going to have a really useful point of view, it's not enough to have depth. You also need to have breadth. And the expression T-shaped people is a very useful one. The idea that the most valuable, insightful people are people who have that depth, but they also have a breadth. They are T-shaped. So what is breadth all about? It's about gaining experiences in the widest possible arena. It's about reading and learning, not just about a narrow subject, but about a range of subjects that surround it. Because the wider your knowledge and understanding, the more you're able to draw on different ideas to enhance the depth of your understanding of your principal specialism and expertise. And in doing that, you can set things in context, you can draw connections between what you're talking about and other things. Those will help you to understand more deeply. And of course, you can also draw relevant distinctions. This may look like that, and that may look like this, but they are different. A true expert is able to do two things that a superficial expert is less able to do. Firstly, a true expert can form connections and understand how apparently different things are linked. And secondly, a true expert can look at two things that look to other people to be similar and see the subtle differences. Connections and distinctions are what expertise is all about. The other value of breadth is getting a wider perspective on issues, being able to see one thing in the context of a whole. And that can be about the breadth of an ecosystem or a supply chain, but it can also be in time terms, seeing what's happening now in the context of a deeper future or a deeper past. The third thing I'd like to say about authority and credibility is it is nothing without good self-knowledge, understanding yourself. That was Socrates' advice. First of all, know thyself. Because if you don't know your own strengths, your own weaknesses, your own curiosities, then any advice, any guidance, any expertise you offer to other people is going to be tainted by a misunderstanding of your own limitations. And it's not just about knowing the boundaries of your expertise. It's also about having the humility to focus your attention on the things that you really understand. By selecting carefully where you offer an opinion, you avoid overstretch, stepping outside of your own area of expertise and therefore risking giving poor advice. It may not be wrong advice, but it won't have that depth of insight that will lend you gravitas. But don't worry, because there is a well-known psychological effect. It's known as the narrower is deeper effect. The more narrowly you claim an expertise, the deeper people think that that expertise really is. But there's another psychological principle that goes along with that, and that's the halo effect. If people think you have a huge depth of expertise in one area, then psychologically they assume that that area is larger and larger. And if they want to know about contexts outside of that area, because of that depth, the halo effect leads them to think that your expertise is wider than perhaps it is. And if you do have a genuine breadth of knowledge and understanding, whilst you may not have a deep expertise outside of your main area, you will be able to talk with some authority. And it's certainly true that Philip Tetlock, in studying expert predictors, discovered that the expert predictors who were more generalist typically were better able to predict the future than the more narrow experts who were more specialist. The final thing I want to say about expertise is that we can't all be an expert in everything, and we certainly cannot have the answer to anything that might come up. Indeed, this is even true within your domain of expertise. No matter how narrow your domain of expertise, there will be times when a pertinent question comes up to which you don't have the answer. And your job as an expert, as a professional, as a manager and leader is not to have the answer to every question. Your role, if you're to carry true gravitas, isn't to have the answers. It's to be able to point to how we can acquire the answers. And therefore, the answer to every question, if you don't already have that answer, is in how to get the answer. It's about knowing the process. I don't know the answer, but this is how we can go about getting it. If you know how to construct a process to get the answer, then people will trust your judgment. So, gravitas is to a huge extent about having genuine credibility through expertise and knowledge. And that knowledge needs to be both deep and broad. It needs to be constrained by good self-knowledge, and it needs to be supplemented by an understanding of the process of how to extend that knowledge when you need to. Please give us a thumbs up if you like this video. There's loads more great management courses content to come, so please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of it. I'll see you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.